everybody, and welcome to our next edition of the SCHOTT Pharmaversity podcast. Today, I'll have a speaker with me who some of you might already know. He gave us a first insight on topics regarding the hospital surrounding during our first digital Pharmaversity round last year. While he explained us a little bit about the next generation of containers that are required for specific challenges in the hospital application back then, today he will give us a deep dive regarding a broader look on the efficient drug fill and finish process in and for hospitals to avoid something like drug shortages and to improve in the end patient safety. And yeah, while still sitting remotely, I am very happy to welcome Niklas Niederwieser again.
Hello to everybody from my side.
Hi, Niklas. Hello. I am very happy to have you here as my guest again today. And yeah, maybe you can please shortly introduce yourself a little bit and your area of responsibility for those out there who haven't heard anything of you or seen you so far.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So my name is Niklas Niederwieser. I work in SCHOTT, or I work at SCHOTT in St. Gallen in Switzerland as a business development manager for polymer solutions. Yeah, within this position, I focus a lot on the hospital market, on the intravenous drug markets. And yeah, I am from my background, I'm a material scientist. So this also means that I support our customers around the globe with technical expertise. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and talk to you today.
Perfect. Thanks for that short information about yourself and that introduction. And yeah, I think we can jump directly in our topic of today. And Niklas, when considering the medication that is usually injected and used within hospitals, there, I would say, are various types of drugs that are relevant. It is a range from the generics to very specific emergency medication that needs to be applied. And overarching in your Pharmaversity sessions, you showed that COC, so cyclic olefin copolymer, as a material is quite suitable for this. Can you summarize shortly in 1 or 2 sentences why this is the case and what makes it an ideal material in this field?
Yeah, of course. So what we also talked last time is that basically in hospitals that are complex, so hospitals are key healthcare institution, they have challenging requirements, complex conditions, there may be stress. And within this surrounding where drugs are then mostly given intravenously, so directly into the bloodstream of a patient, a high quality container makes sense, especially something like COC pre-filled syringes. And why is this the case? Especially because pre-filled syringes help a lot, for example, with reducing medication errors. So in hospitals, especially when we think about emergency situations, this can be quite stressful, and it is prone to make, or is a prone environment for medication errors. And here pre-filled syringes, for example, help quite nicely. They also help to reduce other issues like microbial contaminations. They reduce the time that is needed to prepare and administer a syringe. This also can save labor time, like nursing time on the wards. But in addition, this also can increase patient safety because the administration of the drug is faster. So there is a even faster drug onset, for example, again, in emergency situations. And yeah, and in addition to that, pre-filled syringes also can reduce drug waste.
I see. So it's not only the material itself, it's also the fact that it's a prefilled syringe that is used and that the prefilled syringe is made out of this high glass polymer in the end.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay. So the pre-filled syringe is important, and then at the end it also comes to choose which pre-filled syringe material. So there exists a few material options when it comes to pre-fillable containers, and we also learned in the last podcast that for most hospital and IV application, COC is the most suitable material. I mean, there would be glass. Glass is something that many people know from pharmaceutical packaging, as it's often considered as the gold standard, and it has the best barrier properties. So people might think that also glass could be suitable for hospitals, but it has one drawback in the hospital field, and this is that it's not really suitable to produce a a glass prefillable syringe with a large diameter. So, for example, on 50 milliliter, that is often used in the hospital surrounding. And this is exactly where then, where COC, so cyclic olefin copolymer, comes into place, as it has high barrier properties similar to glass. And in addition to that, it's possible to produce large volume containers. So up to 50 ml is no problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for that rough look into that material part as well, and this with regard to the types of medication and the sizes that is needed in the hospital again. Niklas, what I would like to go into a little deeper today is the way and the setup with regard to how the hospitals are getting the drugs they need. So cases in which drug shortages raise problems showed that for hospitals, it is a vital part to have kind of a, I would call it self-supply of certain drugs. Can you tell us a little bit about the drug shortage topic as such and the relevance this topic has in this field?
Of course. So shortages of IV drugs, of IV medication is becoming, since several years, even more frequent problem globally. And it has been reported from, even from high, middle, and low income countries around the world. So it's really a global issue that we see. And basically it is a significant public health issue. As well here, so as we said, globally. So this means in the United States as well as also here in Europe. There is, when I say drug shortage, what do I mean? So with drug shortage, we really mean that there is a period where the demand of a drug exceeds the supply of the drug. And this then impacts, of course, patient care, because this means that the hospital does not get the required drug, and therefore this means that there may be a delay in the therapy of the patient. There may be even a cancellation of the care or a suboptimal treatment because the hospital pharmacist has to change the drug and use let me say, a similar one, which is but not exactly the same drug. Or it also can result into an increased length of stay. And it is unfortunately, a very common problem. For example, a recent study from 2019 from the European Association of Hospital Pharmacists in the EU reported that 95% of the hospital pharmacists in Europe had a current big problem with drug shortages. And also in the US, where the FDA is taking care about it, we have around, so there were in 2019, there were around 51 new shortages. So basically, this is a current serious problem that that can significantly affect patient care.
Wow, impressive numbers that you mentioned there. I mean, it's really, it seems to be a very important topic to look at. And maybe let's elaborate a little bit on the ways that are there to avoid problems or problematic situations like this that are based on, I would say, drug shortage. I could imagine that is either by receiving the drugs from compounding companies then, or by having the fill and finish in-house for the hospitals. Can you help us here to understand the options and what they actually means for the hospitals?
Of course. I mean, there are a number. So since this is a serious problem with also a lot of different root causes, it is a kind of a complex topic to solve, and there are, of course, many different ways to solve it and to tackle it. One is topic that you mentioned, which means that this means that there is a increase of production capabilities, or basically like a production of these drugs that are not on the market, for example, in hospitals or in hospital pharmacies or at compounders, at compounding centers that maybe take or use an alternative regulatory pathway. And so this is one way to try to solve this issue. And Yeah, when many people think about fill and finish of the production and of drug or fill and finishing it into a container like a prefillable syringe, they are often then a bit, when they don't come from the typical pharmaceutical company, they are often a bit reluctant because they think about big filling machines that are often seen in the pharmaceutical companies, but there also exists, and this is important, there also exists nowadays some smaller lines that can operate quite nicely with, let me say, with the capacity of 400,000 pieces, so containers a year. So they are also suitable for hospital pharmacies, for example. They work easy. They're easy to operate. They don't need. They're not complex. They don't need they don't need a really high capacity, like producing millions of containers. And and in addition to that, companies like SCHOTT, and also the various machine producers work together to then offer to these customers a very easy to solution, and we help there with expertise so that it really then works quite nicely.
Mhm. Okay. And maybe to jump in and one question in between, do you see any kind of like regional difference here? You mentioned the US a little bit earlier. You mentioned the EU and the also authorities that are elaborating in this field. Do you see that the hospitals in these different regions, do they work differently, or do they have any kind of different structures that need to be considered? Would you say there are differences?
Yes, so yes, there are definitely differences, especially because it is I mean, as we all know, a highly regulated market, and there are when we look at the European Union, there are different laws and different aspirations in the different countries. What we have seen, for example, is that the Netherlands is one of the front runners in this field, and their hospitals are investing in their own machine capabilities, and are trying to counteract this drug shortage and also get additional advantages of pre-filled syringes by investing into their own filling machines, so that they get more independent also from the market in case of a high volatility, so basically that they try to produce for themselves. So this is what we've seen in the Netherlands, and other countries are also tending to follow.
This is more the EU point of view that you have just mentioned. If we look into the US market, would you say that this fill and finish approach is similar, or do you see that there are other preferred ways there?
Yeah, so in the US, we see a slightly different approach. And this means that in the US, there are so-called outsourcing facilities, so 503B compounding centers, 503B outsourcing facilities, and these are companies that can compound hospital drugs in larger batches that are then produced for hospitals. But the interesting thing is that these outsourcing facilities target exactly to produce the drugs that are on the FDA drug shortage list. And this is what we see in the US, and this has some advantages for the patients, as they can produce exactly these drugs that are on shortage, and as well in let me say larger batches under GMP requirements. And these outsourcing facilities are of course also producing ready-to-use pre-filled syringes. And this is the picture in the US, which is slightly different than in Europe. But this also means that also compounders in Europe that are maybe thinking of producing hospital drugs in pre-filled syringes can contact us, and then we help them. And these are more or less the regional pictures and the regional differences that we see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect. I see. And then, so then let's go back. Sorry for that jump into that regional part, but I was just interested in that. And maybe coming back, you said that you're working also closely together with the machine suppliers and so on. So I would be interested if there is really the case that a hospital wants to build up such capabilities to become more efficient, and also to make sure that the drug delivery is assured for the sake of patient safety in the end. what needs to be thought about in the first step, but also in the second step for them maybe. So when they start thinking about doing it, what's the first step to do? Would they contact you and you give them, you can help them in the way to set it up? Or how would that work for them? Can you give kind of a description of the way to go, but maybe some first help, how you could support hospitals that would like to start with that?
Yes, exactly. So the hospitals can then get gladly directly in touch with us, and what we then is that we will talk with them together, also maybe jointly with the machine producer. So talking a bit about what is the demands that they have, what are the exact types of drugs that they are interested in filling, what are the formats, and then we as SCHOTT get also in touch with all machine producers that are producing these types of machines. The syringes, our syringes are validated. So this means that the machine producers did already a lot of tests with our syringes, and they know how they work with the different with our different formats. We are also helping, of course, with our material expertise, as we know our syringes quite well. We can also help with some, let me say, with the testing and the first validation steps, and also maybe to bring the production together with the machine producer to higher standards. So with process control, and there we are always happy to help.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's actually in the end offering of the prefilled syringes, but in combination with the additional steps that are required and that are necessary in the end, because filling the drugs into the prefilled container is a necessary step. And so you say you are in the exchange constantly with all the other suppliers here to make it a full offering, I would say, for the hospital in the end, or at least to make it easier for the hospital in the end to look for that full offering. I mean, it's not a full package that you directly offer, but having that exchange with the other suppliers, make it compatible with each other, that helps in the end to choose a system that works. Did I get that right?
Yes, exactly. So you got it right completely. So, and when we talk about our COC syringes, so about our Topak polymer syringes, we see this also as a complete system. So we don't only offer the barrel, the COC, but we also offer, of course, the plunger that comes into the syringe. So this is validated. This is a complete system. We have different plunger formulations. We also offer a plunger rods. We offer a tip cap, or then in addition to a tip cap, there's also the option for a rigid closer. So not like a tip cap, this is a soft. There's also the possibility to get a rigid closer, and this is also how we help the customer also by choosing then the right components that he needs, and then we really offer this as a complete system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Thank you. One more question on the topic of the prefilled container, because I'm interested in that. Would you say that a prefilled container is more expensive than a disposable one? Because this was what I was thinking of. And why is it worth it for a hospital to switch to that kind of container, and in particular, a high quality prefillable polymer syringe like you offer? So what would you say here? Why is it, if it's more expensive than the disposable syringes?
Yeah, so if people think about pre-filled syringes, about investing in a machine, people of course might be scared about the costs. And for example, in the first place, a shortcoming of pre-filled syringes is that the sole buying price is more expensive than conventional containers like vials, ampoules, or even disposable polypropylene syringes. But despite these, I would say, apparently higher costs, pre-filled syringes in general can reduce the total costs quite considerably. This comes by the fact that compared to also like the conventional container, they reduce nursing time, they reduce drug waste, and they minimize medication errors. And especially these errors can have a high impact on costs. So, for example, the World Health Organization says that the total global costs of medication errors are around 42 billion US dollars, or there are also other studies from the US who say that a medication error, so that leads to adverse drug events, costs on average roughly $3,000. So this means that in general, pre-filled syringes compared to other conventional containers or disposable syringes have the potential to really save costs despite these apparently higher purchasing price. So this is about pre-filled syringes. And now when we think about the production of some drugs at your own hospital, there's also a really interesting study coming from the Netherlands, from the Isala hospital in the Netherlands, and they really performed a total cost of ownership calculation. So they looked at the investment costs that they needed for a own filling line, and then they looked at how much or what the cost impact would be if they invest into this filling line and then change the conventional containers like with vials and disposable syringes to polymer pre-filled syringes. And they analyzed it for their hospital, and what they found out is that it's actually not even more expensive, but it's even cheaper. So at the end of the day, despite this higher costs for this investment costs, the hospital can even save money. And the study reveals that for every 100,000 injections that are changed from a conventional container to pre-filled syringes, the hospital can save up to 1.15 million euro. And then they made a realistic scenario where they said if they replace 50% of all of its parenteral injections that are done at the hospital, that the hospital can save roughly 4.9 million euro per year.
Wow, also impressive numbers. And in the first step, you might not expect it to be like that, but it's really good to know that it is like that, and that you can even save money by using the pre-filled containers, even that might seems to be more expensive in the first step. Thank you, Nicholas, for that additional explanation on that point. Yeah, well, now, Nicholas, if I ask you to summarize the most important points you mentioned throughout today's podcast on drug shortages and hospital efficiencies in just a few words, what would you say are the key messages to take away for our audience?
Yeah, I think that the key messages are, as we saw, that drug shortages are a huge problem in hospitals, and that this problem is not getting better over the next 5 to 10 years, at least. Also because if pharmaceutical companies are bringing out new drugs, this may take quite a while and quite some years. So this problem will be there also for the next couple of years. And because of this, we also saw that the investment in our own high-speed automatic filling lines at hospitals is a possible solution to ease these problems of drug shortages. And for this automatic filling, we also saw as a third key takeaway of this podcast that polymer pre-filled syringes, such as SCHOTT Topac Infuse, are the ideal packaging solution for these automatic fillings, as they help to ease drug shortages, but they also help to reduce medication errors and to increase patient safety. And in addition, they can even save money to the hospitals.
And yeah, I think overall, we're more or less coming to an end here. And I think it was a very valuable insight into a field that is so important in all of our daily lives. I mean, imagine you're in a hospital and there is a lack of important drugs, or medication errors can lead to life-threatening situations. I think no one of us would like to experience that. So a very, very important topic that we have explored today. And Nicholas, I can only thank you now, and thank you so much for giving us a deep dive into these considerations and the overall topic here. So yeah, it was really nice to have you again with me for the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks to you, and thanks to everyone listening to it.
So, and yeah, to all of you out there, I hope you enjoyed our podcast today, and I hope we raised also your interest in checking out our other SCHOTT Pharmaversity podcasts. There are a few more various topics, so please feel free to also check these ones out. Thank you so much, and hear you next time. Bye-bye.